Okay, so perhaps you waited this talk for long, so I was not well, you'll see. Okay, so Joe Camel. So I'm lucky because here I have a bit of blank on the left of my slide. So Joe Camel is OCaml. It's a NoCaml compiler that I've chunked to add some constructs. Those constructs are inspired from the joint calculus, which is a process calculi we have been developing in the Moscova team. And we'll see a few examples of programs in JoCaml a bit later. I changed the compiler, and there is very small alteration of the runtime system of NativeCaml. Mostly, what I did is just writing some library code. So, I mean in Camel. So sum is totally invisible. I mean, users don't call those functions from the join library. They are called by linguistic construct, which are a pure language extension. I mean, I changed the IST. No Camel P4, no. I did that because the constructs are so intimately entangled in the structure of the language that it was mandatory, both for typing, pattern matching, compilation, things like that. And JoCaml is also useful for distributed programming. So what I mean by distributed programming is just that your program runs on several machines, or more correctly, in different Unix processes, should they be on the same machine or not. So in practice, this is Camel. I've written, yes, limited source incompatibility, well, whatever it means. It's almost Camel. So I had the benefit, because I was making a new language, to choose to make a few new keywords. Don't try to ask that to Xavier, it's not possible. But if you change the name of the language, it's possible. I have a new usage of OR and of that thing, which in previous version of OCamls were Boolean connectors. It's a bad idea to use them for that purpose. So just use the C equivalents, and these are used by JoCaml for other purpose. And because this is the same system, basically, we have binary compatibility between JoCaml and OCaml for matching versions, as you have binary compatibility between OCaml and OCaml for matching versions. So perhaps it was a bit ambitious. On the top you have a small program written in JoCaml. So I call that a concurrency utility. I could call that a component, it's too small. So this small thing at the top is something you very often have to write when you program concurrently. You wait for n events. Let's say it's some kind of synchronization barrier, although the kind of programming you do in JoCaml is not really like the kind you do when you program with threads. So we call create, so you see it's orange, let, so this is camel. And when it's red, it's JoCaml. Those are JoCaml additions. So the idea is to make these strange things that in the joint calculus we call the definition, def. So there is an equal. Okay, so it's a definition. What is on the left is defined. So we define several channels, ST and tick. And what it means is that if there is some message on ST and some message on tick, then the thing that's on the right of the equal sign is spawned. So if I have ren as a message on ST, and that some message, some unit message come on tick, then a new message containing ren -1 is sent on ST. So that's a rule. And below, you have a second rule, and the rule apply concurrently compete. So if there is some message on wait, and the message 0 on ST, then I reply to wait. So wait is some kind of special channel, a synchronous one. It's just a function. It's a bit like, almost like a function. So this small component, of course, is available in the JoeCamel library. Aha. And then I have to click twice. I don't know why. It's available in the Joke. Is it correct? Okay. So it's just to show you that there is a JoeCamel library, and it is documented. So here it's more or less telling you the same thing that I told you, trying to give you a crash course in JoeCamel in 5 minutes. So basically that counts an event, and if you call wait, you'll be freed after any message are sent on tick. How do you use that? And what for? For instance, well, let's say that you want to print numbers from 0 to 9, so there are 10 of them. So you create that small thing, a column, and then you spawn asynchronously, you print asynchronously from 0 to 9, and once the integer is printed, well, at least, you tick. And once everything is printed, you print a new line. If you don't do that, I won't show the code, but this is the code where you just print asynchronously. Well, I can show you the code. You just print asynchronously. And of course, the top level here will stop whenever it pleases. So it may print, I think it's 8 numbers, or more, or less, or whatever. Okay? So this kind of patterns is very common when you program concurrently. I mean, you never know when the thing's finished. You have to specify it explicitly, and this is the most trivial thing. Okay, if you do this on a list of integers, well, you can use the same countdown, but so here I've written printing the list as a recursive function. It should not frighten anybody, but at the beginning I know making tick whenever I print over there. But in the beginning I need to know how many integers I will print asynchronously. So hence there's a call to list.length for initializing the countdown. Okay, so it's not very elegant. We would like to scan the list only once. And of course you may imagine some situation where you start doing something, like when you live and you don't know when it will finish. Okay, so this is the kind of thing that you write in JoeCamel. So this is still the countdown, counting n events, except that you don't know n in advance. So let's look at the usage first. So instead of using a recursive definition, I have used a recursive, a recursive function, letrec. Here I use a recursive definition loop. So it's asynchronous, in fact, basically. Okay, so I will do spawn loop here from 0 to 9. The idea is that whenever I will do something asynchronously that I want to count, so the tick is called leave, okay, I signal it to the countdown with enter. And more importantly, for this to work, enter is synchronous. I mean, it's a function. I need to have an answer. Okay? And when I know that I will not any longer fork things that I want to count, I say it's finished. Okay? And you have the component on top. Okay, so unsurprisingly, in channel ST, that represents state, we have n that represents in fact the number of tasks that I want to count that are currently active. So if I enter, I do +1. If I do leave, I do -1. Whereas before, with tick, I was only doing -1. And then, more subtle, for replying to wait, when everything is finished, okay, I need the count to be 0, the generator, or the caller, to have signaled me that he was done with counting, with generating events, and of course there is wait, where we are waiting to reply. Okay? So this component, in fact, is the base of everything I will tell you in the 20 minutes that are left. So basically, what can I do with JoeCamel? Perhaps the title should be better, what have I done with JoeCamel? And what you can do also without thinking too much. So those are massively master-slave computation, brute force, with no cleverness in algorithm, whatever. But well, we'll get back. We'll get onto that. Okay? So I've done ray tracing, so you can draw the jokes. So this cryptic sentence, running a slow power memory model simulator on many inputs. You have a program, whatever. So it's a simulator for the memory models of the power machine from IBM, but it's any program. It's very slow. And I need to run that on many different inputs. So I can use JoeCamel to coordinate those evaluations. Of course, on a highly parallel machine. I've done memory model testing also, but that's more or less the same thing. And I've got a small application that opens shells on many machines that's written in JoeCamel, but I won't talk about it anymore. So master and slave. Well, basically it's MapReduce in some sense. But MapReduce is something more subtle where there is a distributed file system. It tries to maybe to manage locality or things like that. Data locality, I mean. I don't do that. I just consider that we compute a function that's a map and a reduce. So I think we can skip all that. And what we want to compute is this applying add to w of x. Running some function and combining the results of this function. And of course, as we are going to do this asynchronously, the order doesn't matter. I think it's mostly trivial. All this will work. So the master will send some work, so it's called subtask, to slaves, at the master choice, in fact. At some point, some slave will answer, and the master will give it another work to do. So the idea, of course, is that the slave execute at most one task at a time. The novelty, perhaps, in the JoeCamel style of doing this kind of thing, is that slaves can pop up at any time. So there's some protocol for the slave to get known to the master, which perhaps is new. Generally, you don't do that in this kind of computation. And so it comes, it gets known by the master, and here we go. So, from a, I'm showing types, well, those are the type of the central types, the important types for the slave and master. The type of the code that they will call or provide. So, a slave does nothing more than taking a subtask sending back a sub-result. Okay, so that's the type of a worker, which is a bit more modern than a slave. Master does a lot of things. This is why he's paid more. Okay, it decomposes a collection. So collection is, of course, to subdivide a big task into small subtasks. It's a collection, meaning a set of things, into subtasks, distribute them to slaves, and combine sub-results into a result. Well, the master, the code that the programmer of the master writes, will basically call a fold function provided by the JOCaml library, which has that type. That's the type of list fold write. Maybe I change the order of parameters. Okay, so a collection is not a list of things, but it's a collection that I can divide. This function to combine sub-result into result, initial result, and send you back the result. So, I will insist on two components. That the master code will use. The pool, which is the basic component that organizes the work, the one, and that uses the collector, which is a generalization of Kanban that combines the sub-results. So, the collector, I don't know if you remember the code for the dynamic Kanban, but it's here again. And I think you remember the principle of the dynamic Kanban. Okay, but to change that into something that will combine sub-result is very easy. So of course now, before the argument was unit, now it takes the function that combines sub-results and the initial result, the initial state of the result. And in the state we have a current result that will evolve. So when I enter, I do nothing to the result because I'm waiting for leave to send you back the y, the sub-result. It's combined with add and remember. And of course I'm still decreasing n. Okay, and when it's finished, you just have to reply R. So the basic behavior of this component is just like the dynamic Kanban, except that it computes a result. Alors, this is an interlude. Jean-Christophe is not here. But the input to this pool structure will be a collection introduced by Jean-Christophe. An enumerator, I'm sorry, like in Java, introduced by Jean-Christophe Filiatre, I think a few years away, that I like. So it's basically a module. You must define a type T, a type of, so it's a collection of elements, and you have a type enum, which is the enumeration itself. It's not very complex. There are more types than code. So you have two functions. Start, to start the enumeration. Okay, that's the, in Java this would be just before the first semicolon. And step, to step into the enumeration, which will be the after the first semicolon. So as an example, here are how you can enumerate integers from n to n. Right. It does what you believe it does. Perhaps the only important thing is in step, when it's over, if the next integer enumeration is greater than n, the max, the upper bound of the interval, then we answer none. So we use the option key. Up. All that for you to understand the code that will come in 2 slides. No, you need that. So here is the pool interface. So it's a simplification, it's a type. Okay, I will show you the code a bit later. So it's a bit complex, that's the type of the pool. So I haven't insisted on that, but in the JOCaml library I use records a lot, because a joint definition defines several channels that basically describe some functionality and that goes together. So it's a record. So there is fold. We have seen fold. Okay. So it takes the enumerable as argument, it's a functor, and here That's the type of collection. And there is a register function. The register function is here for the slave to register their worker. And if they register once, they will be called at most once at a time. I mean, there won't be two concurrent codes. If they register, if a given slave registers twice, it will have two concurrent codes to the worker function it has registered twice. It's simplified. The real one is there. Okay, so it's still, that's the output signature of the functor. Well, the only thing I want to show is that it's a bit more complex, but still you have the fold function, the register function, which is here, the type is coded in a very strong way, but it's that. And you also have a register interruptible function. I won't describe that. What I can show you is really the basic JOCamL code for the pool. In fact, it's very simple. The pool is a meeting between a worker and a task. So worker, W. And what is it? Well, I've called it worker here, but it's register. So any slave will send its worker function on this channel, which is in fact worker. That's W, the slave. ST is a pair, as the slave. It both includes the enumeration that I showed to you 2 slides ago, and C, which is the collector, the generalized countdown. And then the code is, and yeah, that's true. We need to get a task and a worker and to send the task to the worker. So it's just a join, that AND, of messages on those 2 channels. So then I step on the enumeration. If it's over, I signal, well, instead of small m, it's small c, whatever. I signal it's finished, and I release the worker because there's nothing more to work. Otherwise, I release the enumeration immediately if there is another worker concurrently to get it. And all that is just calling the worker with enter and leave as I showed. And fold is just creating this collector, the generalized countdown that combines with the given combination function and initial result, and doing wait. Of course, how many times do I have? Oula, I've got 5 minutes. So I want to use the demo, in fact. I've done this demo many times. In the real life, you have failures. And, well, I do the demo, in fact. No, I won't. I won't. I must manage my time. I'm sorry, if somebody wants to see the demo, I'll show it to you. But in real life, you have failures, and the component that you have into the pool of the JOCamL library handle failures. By using a principle that is better tailored for master than for slaves, better have several slaves working on the same subtask than one slave working while the other are looking at it. I skipped the demo because I want to insist in the 5 minutes that I'm left on some. I've presented you a type language that's nice and so on. Maybe you did not understand, but it looked like serious job. But serious work. But when you really want to work on several machines, on a cluster of machines, there are a lot of nasty details, and I want to describe a few and how JOCamL can help you in those. So the first is how master and slave meet right from the start. Because you have master on one computer and slave on another one, and they don't know about each other. Okay, of course, you need to register, but where is register? So we are now in the Unix, let's say, world. Yes. So the master in fact, as I never know how you call that, but it's an IP address plus a port. Okay. And it listens on that. It's a socket. Okay. Explicitly. Then it builds up its pool using the library. It gets here. It's here. You have the register function of the pool, and you will register the register function of the pool. You will register the register function in the pool into the name service of the master under name register. Okay, I think it's clear. And on slave side, well, we have somehow the address of master from command line, for instance. You will get its name service. And you will get registered by making a lookup on the master name service. Needless to say you that it's not typed. So, for coping with type and safety, I have nothing except a programming discipline. So the programming discipline is that you have a specific module in your application, provided you develop slave and master at the same time, which is generally the case. You define the type. Here is the type of the worker and a magic number. And then you say promise. Whenever the type changes, I change the magic number. Then the master register the magic number in the name service as magic and use typecast. And the slave checks the magic number from the one it finds in the name service of the master. It checks it against the one it was compiled against. Okay, and if it does not work, bad magic. Otherwise, you can get register and it's safe. So no rocket science, but it works. And really, when you develop some application, you need that. No. We all know that camel threads don't run together. I mean, they don't run concurrently, there's a master lock. But anyhow, we are already distributing work among several machines, so it's not much more expensive. In fact, when I launch a slave, as I haven't done the demo, you haven't seen, but when I launch a slave, usually I can say, okay, you slave are in fact n slaves. Okay, well, the slave code can fork exit itself, like that. It's more or less equivalent to this shell script. And anyway, it's just for communicating with the master, so it does not harm, in fact. If, in fact, the slave code is camel code, but if the slave real code is C code, for instance, or camel code, but in another program, well, the slave can fork itself. Can fork the program that does. In fact, this slave is more something like a foreman. Okay, it's distributing work to n workers, and of course, if the machine where the slave is running has n core, that's what you will do. Because it's just external code. Okay, so I think I'll skip that. Just to give you some example of application that I have performed myself. So, I have English friends with whom I'm making science, and we built a model for power machines. And it simulates the memory model of power machine, which is something difficult. We are 5 together, and so on. And so I'm doing the experiment. And so I look at the paper before, not too soon from the deadline, not very far away from the deadline, and say we have tested experimentally. I have written it, it's better. Our model is not invalidated by experiments on the hardware. I have the experiments on the hardware, I have done that during months before. But now I have the program, they completed it today, and I have 2 weeks away. And PPCMap, that's the name of the simulator, is very slow. So I have that many tests to run. But we have just upgraded the cluster, and basically I have 200 cores. And nobody knows that in real. So I managed to get the result for 50 tests, and including all the tests that we are citing in the paper, which is important, in less than 12 hours and 8 megabytes, plus 8 hours for programming and 8 hours of sleep. So I had many times, in fact, for running the longest and more important example that we knew back then, but the whole bunch of the example was performed in less than 1 day. It's not possible for me to run all the tests sequentially to compare this with the 12 hours that I got. So there's another experiment that can show you the benefit of this kind of programming, although it's not very subtle maybe. I have a lot of computing power. I can waste some. I don't pay for it. Nobody at INRIA knows that this cluster is here. Okay? So here is another experiment with timings. My English friends asked me for a regression test. They want all tests that run in less than 1 second, 1 minute for instance. Okay? I can do that with the cluster. So I use this mechanism with the pool. I've written a specific program for that, to find certain number of tests, I don't know, but the one that run in less than 1 minute. It took 300 seconds, which is basically nothing. Okay? I rerun those tests. If I use the whole cluster, it's about 1 minute. So I don't think I can do better. Of course, it much depends on the distribution of the timing of the test, but I don't have time. But I know that here it will be 1 minute or a bit more. Since my English friends don't have a cluster, here for comparison, I have written a makefile for them to make the test concurrently also with make-g, which is another way to do that, but only on one machine. Okay? So with 12 cores, it's one node of the cluster. Doing the whole test of fast test, doing the whole batch of fast tests takes about 5 minutes. But the English friends, they have 4 cores only. Maybe they have several machines with 4 cores, but just with the makefile, it's about 1/4 of an hour. And if they only have 1 core, it's 1 hour. And those are the speed up figures that you need to have in such a talk. So you don't see anything, except that, of course, if you use the whole cluster, it's a waste. But it's free, in fact. Okay? And here, more seriously, the cross is the makefile, is the speed up for the makefile, so it's quasi-linear. And, well, you cannot tell with 2 points. But then is coming the cluster, because the cluster, the minimal is 16, because it has 16 nodes. I could have done the same thing, but wait. So we see that speed up, in fact, is less good, but anyway, who cares? Since it's so, in such a computer, you have so many computing power that you don't care much about speed ups. So, conclusion. I'm sorry, I overrun my time a bit. I've just presented with many lacunes, because this talk was too long, was scheduled too long by me. I've presented some kind of application. And basically here you have a summary. So, some applications are said embarrassingly parallel. Some machines are massively parallel. Or you may have a network of ordinary machines, but many machines in that network. For instance, if you are a teacher, the computer lab runs at night. It does not mean that coding the embarrassingly parallel application on the massively parallel machine is that easy. And JoCamel and its library can help you for this kind of specific application. So that's my message. Of course, with a language like JoCamel, we would like to handle more involved situations. For instance, algorithms that are more demanding. I tried to implement with a student alpha beta, for instance. It's not that easy. Some people have published articles on parallelism alpha beta. I'm skeptical. And that's it. But of course it would be nice. Remember, I've shown you some speed-up figures. Remember that speed-up are against the best sequential implementation, which I did here. But in that application it meant nothing. So for alpha beta, for instance, it's perfectly typical. You have many optimizations that apply only to the sequential case. In fact, alpha beta is a sequential optimization. Okay, and I'm over. So I'm sorry, I'm a bit late, but maybe I have time for questions.
Excuse me.
Yes?
Last year, William Leferrand talked about the use of JoCamL with Oxygen. Did you have heard about it?
Should I repeat the question? So William Ferrand talked about last year about using JoCamL and Oxygen together. Do I know something about it? No.
No.
I know nothing on this.
Did you have tried this combination?
Not at all.
No, at all. Okay.
I'm sorry. It might be interesting, but well, it has nothing to do. Perhaps what I tried to that was clear in that talk is that I did not work a lot on JoCamL during the last 2 years. I worked on weak memory models.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
I got a question on the language. On your first example, there's some limited pattern matching. The ST constructor take a 0 or just some variable. Do you have support for full the full pattern matching of the language? Maybe can you go back to your first example?
Yeah. The question is about pattern matching in the language. So if we look at this one, I don't think there will be more pattern matching. We see that we have ST of 0, so it's pattern matching. Well, the answer is that you can put any pattern here. But the semantics is rather different from the camel one. I mean, the idea is that if there are messages on all the channels in this thing on the left that is called a join pattern, so if there are messages on all the channels defined in a join pattern and that they match all the pattern, then the guard may be fine. I mean, there are absolutely no priority, like in camel. So but it's some kind of generalized pattern matching. I think I answered your question, no? Yes. Yes. Oui.
Sorry, is it supposed to run on Windows?
I'm sorry.
Is Windows supported?
Is what?
Windows.
Windows! Well, I guess you have your answer. Perhaps, I think it's no big trouble to port that on Windows, but I don't know.
So nobody tried it, right?
So the question was, does it work on Windows? Well, I'm
Nobody
sorry.
still tried.
I'm sorry, I don't.
Will you try?
Will I try? It's.
Has anyone tried?
Anyone try?
Yeah.
I think William Ferrand tried. Apparently, it's just a matter of hacking the makefiles of the Objective-Camel Windows distribution. I guess it's true.
So there is no some specific C code that should be changed? Yes?
No, no.
Only makefiles?
Yes, because as I tried to say at the beginning, I wrote very little C code and only concerned with the obscure form of marshalling. nothing
You
to do.
mentioned Fred code. Or maybe
It's
different.
built on top of Objective-Camel Thread library. So it's slow, but it's portable. So I think porting this on, that's the general idea behind JoCamel, in fact. It uses the OCaml infrastructure as much as possible so that to be portable. So probably it should work on Windows as Camel is working on Windows. So maybe we are exaggerating, we should stop.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, we will have a break until 4:30.